We're recording. Cool. Okay, I'd like to call to order the City of Sumner study session. The date is October 26th and the time is 6 p.m. As a reminder, City Hall remains closed because of the COVID-19 pandemic and Governor Inslee's Safe Start order, and the public has been invited to attend virtually using the Zoom meeting access that is on our website and also on the agenda. I've noted that all council members, let me look through attendees again just to make sure. All council members are present. And so we will move to regular business. First thing on regular business is the 2021-2022 preliminary, biennial budget review. I go directly to Cassandra on this one, or I start with you, Jason?
I'll just give a brief intro to it.
Okay.
Tonight, staff is going to be going over all of the miscellaneous and smaller funds that aren't part of the general fund or the utilities. So it's going to be quite a bit of bouncing around between staff presenters rather. And at the end, we'll be talking also about the council strategic reserve fund. So with that, I'll turn it over to Cassandra.
Thank you. So we've got the same format that we have in the past. We'll take a look at different funds and review the 2021-22 goals, and then the budget highlights, which will include really anything that's significant, changed, or otherwise of interest as far as what's embedded into the budget request. So we're going to be looking at special revenue funds. These are our drug enforcement fund and our tourism tax. In our debt service series, our debt service funds and our LID guarantee. We've already reviewed most of the capital funds. We just have the REIT fund left to look at. In our enterprise series, the cemetery and animal control. And then our internal service, that's fleet operations and replacement, as well as technology. And then at the very tail end, I have a couple of those miscellaneous funds that just quietly just hum around in the background. So we always start off with our mission. This really is what drives our budget preparation. And that's to provide needed and valued services that promote our sense of community. In addition to the mission, whenever we're developing a budget, really the foundation and the cornerstones are those strategic priorities that are set by City Council. A safe and efficient transportation system, protection of water, open spaces, and natural resources, long-range financial stability to provide a balance of city services and enhancing our community character. With that, I will jump right into, this is the first of our special revenue funds. This is the Drug Enforcement Fund, and turn it over to our police chief.
Thanks, Cassandra. Good evening, council members. So the fund, our drug fund, is on your budget document, page 136. This fund typically hasn't had a lot of activity in the way of revenue through forfeitures or seizures, nor has it had much expense to the fund. We do put a modest amount in to cover some overtime for drug investigation, some equipment, some training. Some years ago, our drug fund made a substantial purchase of a DARE vehicle. I think it was in 2010. And I've been talking to Jason and the mayor. It's, as you know, our classic 1969 Pontiac GTO that was given to us by the city of Puyallup. We've decided to, the council authorized the surplus of it, and it's currently up for auction at, but I think $22,100 is the current bid on it. And we talked about putting that revenue from that back into our drug fund and provide for some future programs. One of the things that our drug fund does do is purchase Narcan, which is an opiate antibody or inhibitor. So if officers in the field encounter someone experiencing an opioid overdose, they can administer it, potentially save their life until EMS can arrive on scene. We also participate with Pierce County Health Department in the countywide drug take-back program. So we have Dropbox available in our police lobby. And so far this biennium, 19 and 20, we've disposed of 406 pounds of unused prescription drugs. That's about it, unless there's any questions.
Anybody have any questions of the chief? Is that you, Cindy?
Just how expensive is that Narcan? Just out of curiosity.
So we're able to do it on a group purchasing cooperative for $70 a dose.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And we equip every officer with 2 doses.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions council has for the chief? Okay, seeing, hearing none. Go ahead.
I was just waiting to see if I was introduced or just jump in. Apparently, just
I
jump
think
in.
you just jump in, Carmen.
Jump right
Just
on
jump in.
please.
Got it. I just didn't want to talk over anyone. The Zoom faux pas. Occupancy tax. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this. Actually, our lodging tax advisory committee just met, so you actually just approved their recommendations only a few weeks ago. So not a whole lot. This is that fund continuing. It continues to receive revenue and then continues to be spent per the recommendations of the lodging tax group. I do want to note partnerships are key on this. Again, 5 of our 7% goes to Pierce County. So a lot of good partnerships with organizations like Travel Tacoma and Visit Rainier, which really are our 2 largest destination marketing organizations in our region. The Candlewood Suites did come on board and is open. Yay! So that will be a source of new revenue, hopefully, although they did remind me that if someone stays more than 30 days, it's considered a rental and does not collect lodging tax. So I will be there kicking people out on the 29th day. Just kidding, but kind of the urge to do that. Also, as we talked about when we passed the most recent recommendations, the hospitality world is in quite a bit of transition and flux with coronavirus. And so your LTAC purposefully did not recommend a whole lot of spending this last go around because they'd like to see where the world is in a few months and come back to you with some more recommendations that will do the best amount of work at the time. Hoping to capitalize once people can move about a bit more on that revenge travel, that feeling of finally getting to go somewhere.
Okay, that it, Carmen?
That's it for me, unless there's
Okay,
questions.
anybody have any questions? Okay, Carmen, you're off the hook.
All right, thank you.
Move on to debt service funds. Must be back to Cassandra.
This is back to me. So on our debt service funds, I am pleased as punch to say that we have no outstanding general obligation debt for this fund to manage. I don't know that I've ever worked for a city that can say that, so I think it's a really proud point. Coming into the next biennium, we'll be coordinating financing of the Public Works Operations Facility, and we'll be continuing to manage our assessment debt and our revenue-backed debt. So the assessment debt are those local improvement district bonds that we've issued that are paid back through assessments on the property owners. And then we have some revenue-backed debt that's actually presented in the water and sewer funds, and that is for the central well, some pump stations, as well as trust fund loans for our treatment plant. So there's not a whole lot happening in the debt service fund. We'll be managing LID number 78. That's the 136 in Valentine Corridor Improvement Project. We issued that debt last year, the first year of assessments. We just finished billing and collecting. We have no activity program for Fund 221. That's our LID guarantee fund. That really is just, that is a pot of money that by statute we are required to keep intact. And what that does is it protects our assessment bond holders in case of any default from the property owners, which we haven't had. Like I said, we are required to keep that guarantee fund. And then I wanted to throw up this graphic. This is our non-voted debt capacity. It's based off of a formula that runs off of our assessed valuation. So it changes a little bit from year to year, but normally you would see a red slice of that pie showing our outstanding debt, and we don't have that. So we'll likely see this pie change a little bit in coming years with the operations facility, but I think it's still a proud point to note that we are relatively obligation debt-free. Any questions on debt service? I know it's not the most exciting, but I love it.
Come on, throw her a challenging question. Go ahead. Go ahead. Okay. Nobody's gonna take it on. I don't blame anybody. Okay. Move
right.
from debt service funds to
To the REIT fund.
REIT fund.
So this will be me as well. So the REIT fund, REIT is real estate excise tax. This is a tax that is assessed upon the sale of real estate properties. And so this is a tax that comes to the city. Historically, we have used this tax for a variety of capital projects. We've used it for trail construction. More recently, we've used it for both Bridge Street to support Bridge Street Bridge, and we have some funds earmarked for the Stewart Road Bridge. Our 2021-2022 goals are to continue to identify those opportunities to support our capital programs within statutory guidelines. REIT funds are heavily restricted by RCW on what they can and cannot be used for. And so we really do evaluate each request to use REIT funds on a case-by-case basis. For this upcoming biennium, we actually don't have any expenditures planned. So we'll continue to receive the revenues. We do forecast this one relatively conservatively. Like I said, it's completely based on real estate activity. And so as projects come up, like I said, we'll evaluate them within both our strategic goals and statutory guidelines. And then if a request is successful, bring that back to council via the form of a budget amendment.
Okay, any questions, Cassandra, on the REIT fund? Okay, go ahead.
We'll
Move on to
move
the
it.
cemetery fund.
Did you
Mr.
have
Berry.
something, Cassandra? No? Okay. So for the cemetery fund this year, we have two things we're looking at doing. One is already started this year with Scott Carteret doing the master plan update for the cemetery. Last time this was done was 1997. Things have definitely changed and the market has shifted quite a bit. So we look forward to finishing that up in 2021 and having that help guide our path moving forward. Another thing is to continue marketing our new offerings, which include the Heritage Farms, which is a couple years old and really popular. We just got some glass front niches delivered about a week ago, and those are almost ready to be sold. And then green burial space is going to be offered hopefully here in the beginning of 2021. So as exciting as the cemetery can be, that's pretty exciting. Next up is the fund itself. We're doing pretty much just status quo. No big capital improvements, no major changes to what we're doing, and continue to operate with subsidy from the general fund. And that's all I've got unless there's any questions.
Okay, any council member have any questions of Mr. Berry regarding the cemetery? Go ahead, Barb.
So on the long range plan, what is Babyland, Double Depth, and Rose Garden?
So those are current sections of the cemetery we have right now. They are, it sounds weird, but kind of at capacity. We need to expand. So that's part of the master plan update. Scott's identifying those expansions that are needed, as well as new offerings that we'd be looking at, including more personal mausoleums and things like that. So it's more of identifying what land we have left and how to best utilize it.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, Mr. Berry? Okay, seeing none, go ahead. Let's move on to the next one. Animal control. Just back to you, Chief.
Yes, sir. Back to me. In your budget document, page 180, this is our animal control fund, which combines both shelter operations and enforcement operations and a separate revenue account. So this is also pretty much just a status quo budget, maintain our staffing. We've got a total of 5 FTEs, supplemented with a lot of dedicated volunteers. So we'll maintain those staffing positions. We've seen an increase of licensing. I think people with this stay home have adopted pets to keep for companionship while they're working from home. And identify shelter efficiencies or partnerships. We issued a request for qualifications that just ended the first week of October, and we received 2. And this is for shelter management. And one was from the Tacoma Pierce County Humane Society, and one was from Auburn Valley Humane Society. So we're looking at those, see if there's efficiencies to be gained through partnerships with other nonprofit organizations. I did, on the next slide, provide some modest training for this National Animal Care Association. They have a certification process. It's $400, and it's a at your own pace online for all the ACOs to have that certification. To meet the cost of inflation and increased costs in operations, we did increase our per capita, 25 cents on the licensing side and 25 cents on the per capita side. So a total of 50 cents per population, everyone in our service area, which is about 105,000 people. And then I deferred the replacement of a vehicle. We have a vehicle that was up in this biennium to be replaced, but it's got relatively low miles. It's still serviceable. So by deferring its replacement, we saved about $8,000 in what we would have had to contribute to our equipment reserve account. Any questions?
Any questions anybody has of the chief regarding animal control? Any questions? Okay. Seeing none, let's move on to the next one. Fleet. Who's doing fleet? Mr. Steffens.
I am. So Fleet Operations Fund. This is the first of one of the city's several internal service funds, which means the customers of this fund, the fleet department, are the other departments of the city, and they pay operating assessments for the work that needs to be done. For 21-22 goals, purchase and repair vehicles and equipment as necessary, provide timely services to all departments, and continue to work with a contractor on the design of the new operations facility. And this department, I should add, has 2 employees, a mechanic and a chief mechanic. Some budget highlights, not really super highlights, but purchasing of a new plasma cutter, reestablishing the vehicle detail program. Hopefully when folks are back in City Hall driving the pool cars, we'll need to get them detailed again. And looking to migrate the fleet database to the cloud with a kind of a software upgrade in the summer of 2021. And that is all I have for fleet operations.
Mr. Steffens, what's a plasma cutter?
Something that cuts big pieces of metal. Is that correct? We'll assume so.
Just out there, and you didn't cover it, so I figured I'd throw it at you. See what you came up with.
Hit that curveball out of the park.
Yeah. Better lucky than good. Yeah, okay.
Take it. Thank you.
Any other questions anybody has on Fleet Operations Fund? Okay. Technology Services Fund.
Did somebody mention software a minute ago? I think so.
Oh, I think he said softball, but it could have been software.
It was software when he was talking about migrating to the cloud.
There you go.
And speaking of that, getting started with the 21-22 goals for IT is we're going to migrate our email archives to the Office 365 cloud. That's going to save us approximately $8,000 over the biennium by removing our Barracuda email archiver and putting everything on the cloud. Also, we're working on a phased rollout of SharePoint. We've already started with that, but we're going to continue with the build out of SharePoint. And then we're going to begin adopting the Teams for greater collaboration. Another highlight, or should I say goal, is replace and upgrade our police server infrastructure. It's due for its replacement, so we got that on the list to replace probably in the first quarter of this coming year, if I'm correct.
Hey, Brian, just a second. Patrick Reed has a question. Go ahead, Patrick.
Yeah, Brian, I just had a question on SharePoint. Approximately how much is that to implement, or is that being rolled out as part of 365 as the whole package?
Well, it's going to be rolled out as 365 as the whole package. However, we're working with some integrators to help us with the actual rollout and creating templates to use for each department. The purpose of that is that they've helped approximately 50 other municipalities roll out SharePoint, and they know the ins and outs and the pitfalls, and we want to avoid some of those pitfalls. So we're looking at them for some help. They've helped other cities like Tacoma, Bellevue, and also city of Sammamish. That's the local ones, but a total of approximately 50 municipalities.
Okay, and the only reason I was asking is I'm familiar with SharePoint, and I know the state for a couple of years went through a huge push to shift everything over to it, and it did not go very well. Now everybody's pretty much shifted away and stopped using it, except for very specific projects.
Well, we're hoping for a better outcome than the state rolled out. Also, we're using this as an electronic document and records management system. So we're hopefully going to move some of our network shares over to the cloud as well, and use this opportunity to create what's the word I'm looking for? Set up timelines that that we can remove data from our network based on those timelines, depending on how important that data is.
Like a critical pathway?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, no, I appreciate the explanation. I was just curious because I know just from my experience with it, it was a lot of staff did not feel comfortable or trained because it can be pretty complex depending on what you're using it for. And not only with staff that I work with, but also in other agencies, it did not go well, and that could have been the way it was rolled out as well.
Okay. Yeah, we're planning on a phased rollout. Me and Jeff and Jason spoke just earlier today about it, and we're looking at a phased rollout. Finance, specifically Cassandra, has volunteered and willingly volunteered to be our first rollout of the SharePoint, to get used to it and start getting people a little bit more comfortable with it in the adoption of it.
Good. I'm hopeful that it works. It's got great tools in it. It's just a matter of being able to keep everybody on the same page.
It does. And there's another point of with the integrator. I think Cassandra mentioned it last week. With the integrator, we don't know what we don't know. And with the integrator, they're going to help us understand that a little bit better.
Nice. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so also, so I talked a little bit about the police server infrastructure going to be replaced in this coming year. Also, cybersecurity, that's become paramount with everybody, and that's ongoing. Also for
trickery, Mr. Cunningham, trickery.
Sometimes, from time to time. For budget highlights, this coming year, we're replacing 75 computers. It's more than our usual replacement. Every 4 years, we have this high peak, and we've tried to smooth it out. We're still trying to smooth that out a little bit, but this is our high year of doing so. 18 desktops, 38 laptops with docks, and 19 rugged laptops. We kind of moved over to a laptop dependent infrastructure at this point. The reason we still have 18 desktops are those are going to be ones that are going to be used. For instance, the finance counter. There's a number of them at the shops facility that are desktop computers also that need to stay as desktops because they're used by multiple people. Typically with the desktops, if there's more than one person using it, then we keep it with a desktop. If it's a single use, then we have been switching them over to laptops. So let's see, we're replacing 7 servers. That's our backup server infrastructure, a storage area network server. We're extending some warranties on some key servers because we have the ability to do so and extend the life because they're running, just like the chief was mentioning about being able to keep a vehicle. We're able to do that with a couple of our servers, and as I mentioned, replace the PD server with a high. But that's going to be a good move of replacing the PD server. We've been wanting to do that for a little while. Also, we maintain and support 87 plus software packages, everything from Adobe Acrobat to Zoom. So that's literally A to Z. And then once again, we're going to continue the cybersecurity testing, analysis, and training and extra testing and testing some more each month. Any questions, anybody?
Okay, who's brave enough to ask Brian a question? Go ahead, Barb.
So I really don't understand SharePoint. Is it like multiple people using it, or what is it?
SharePoint is basically it's an area where users can collaborate on documents and communicate with each other. For instance, right now, what we do is we have network shares where we store documents. And when you want to open up a document, you go to the network share and you open it up and you look at it. You might modify it, then you close it, and then somebody else might come along and they might open it up and change something and close it. Or sometimes, for instance, like the SharePoint, the PowerPoint that we're looking at right now, the chief had it open and had it locked. So before this meeting started, Cassandra needed to get in there, but the chief had it open. That's kind of old school in the way that it used to be. Now, if we move this file over to SharePoint, people can actually open it up and use it and work on it at the same time. Also, it saves revisions of the different files, so you can actually go back in time and open it up. We have the ability to save revisions, but it's more robust in the SharePoint environment. So it makes the collaboration of working with documents a lot easier. Another good point is, for instance, right now, if I wanted to share something with you, I'll have the urge to email you a document. You open that document, might save it on your desktop and might modify it, and then you might email it to somebody else. Well, that creates multiple documents. With SharePoint, you have the ability to work on a single document and share the location of that single document. So you don't have multiple variations of multiple documents. You just have a single document that everybody gets to work on simultaneously or independently, but you don't end up with such a large amount of document versions all over your network. Does that kind of answer it a little bit? I know it's kind of, I went all over the place with that, but that's just the key features.
Well, it's clear. I understand it better than just when it was listed on your PowerPoint. So,
if you'd like to, sometime in the future, I have a couple of videos that I can share with the council. In fact, with all the city that we did with our SharePoint integrators, that talks a little bit about how the new system works. I can share that with you if you'd like me to send it your way.
Okay.
Okay, Brian, I guess I would ask you, is this something that primarily staff's going to be involved with, or to what degree would council be involved in SharePoint? It seems to me like more of a staff type of thing in terms of the majority of the users.
Yes, that is correct. There's going to be, we need to decide, the staff needs to decide on a higher level of what do we share on SharePoint and who do we share it with. It's going to be shared, SharePoint will be used throughout our city staff, but it does have the ability to share outside of our city staff with key vendors that we have out there that we do business with all the time. Also, we're thinking of maybe even putting putting these Zoom meetings on it that we can share with the public. So if the public wants it, they can just go to our SharePoint site and access those.
Thank you, Brian.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions of Brian?
Well, thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Brian.
So before I move on, I just want to give a shout out to IT. We put a fair amount of resources invested into not only staff training for IT, but also cybersecurity. You've probably seen in the news recently, Tyler Technologies, who provides our financial software, was hit by ransomware. Our IT department probably had it locked down faster than almost any other entity out there. It was fun to watch the training take place in real time just with our line staff, because we were blasting IT staff with emails. Did you see this? Did you see this? And he's like, yeah, you know what? We're already on this. We've already locked it down. We've already, closed every door. So it really is one of those things. I know we like to poke fun at some of the cybersecurity testing, but when you see that happening in real time and knowing that we're reaping the benefits of it, I just want to give that shout out.
Yeah, thank you. Sandra, what IT is doing in that area. And then, frankly, I look at the migration to a virtual environment and what they've managed to accomplish in that area through all the various platforms that you work through. It has been truly incredible. So yeah, hats off to IT and all that you do. Fleet replacement.
This fund is where the city purchases its vehicles. All these vehicles purchased out of this fund are bought with established reserves. So we are, as we're driving one vehicle, we're collecting money to fund its replacement. For 21-22 goals, we're going to be purchasing our first hybrid police vehicle, and we'll be replacing some aging equipment at the city shops as well as at the cemetery. As mentioned before, we have 3 police vehicles that we're going to be purchasing. We know as of right now, at least one of them is going to be hybrid and possibly all 3 of them. We have a bucket truck, a small vac truck, a water quality truck at the shops. The bucket truck and the vac truck were due to be replaced several budget cycles prior, but we held on to them and kind of reaped some savings, and now it's time to get them finally replaced, as well as a new small dump truck for the cemetery.
Okay. Go ahead, Melanie.
So I must wrongfully be remembering something, but I thought that in one of the previous budget cycles, there was a discussion around all police costs under the police budget. So did this change recently, or was this the piece that got pulled out of the police budget? Does anyone remember what I'm talking about?
So this fund has been used for years for purchasing, for collecting police reserves. So every year, the police essentially pays like 1/9 of the cost of every new car, and then after 9 years, we buy them out of this fund. So the savings cost is out of the police department, but the actual purchase comes from this fund.
Interesting. Are there other funds that, oh, sorry, go ahead, Jason.
I think just to clarify one thing that might answer your question, Councilmember Peterson, is all funds pay into this if they have a vehicle. So the general fund, which funds the police department, you'll see a corresponding line item saying fleet replacement for a certain dollar amount. I'm just going to use $50,000 because I don't know what it is off the top of my head. It'll be a $50,000 expense on the police budget, and then it'll be a revenue into this fund. And it'll sit there in that basically a savings account until you actually purchase the vehicle.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Essentially, it's the bank.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah, so all of the police expenditures are still out of the police department. It's just the actual, when it's time to purchase, comes out of this fund.
Okay, go.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask a question of?
Sure, go ahead, Cindy.
Yeah. How much does a small dump truck cost?
Oh, that is a fantastic question, and I do not have it right off the top of my head.
Less than a bigger one.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna say they're $65,000.
So
I think Cassandra's looking.
I am. So that is between $70,000 and $80,000.
Okay. Wow. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Cindy.
Thanks, Cassandra.
Thanks, Cassandra. Go ahead, Jeff. Did you have anything else other than what you?
I do not.
Okay. Any other questions of Jeff on the fleet replacement fund? Okay. Let's move on. The
Okay.
other category.
So this is back to me just with some cleanup of some of our other funds. On page 183, you'll see Fund 501. This is our unemployment insurance fund. This fund is essentially the revenues are transferred in. It's supported by the general fund. We use this fund for whenever we have an unemployment insurance claim. So unemployment is we are self-insured, which means we pay the claims as we go. It's very difficult to forecast. We really don't know what the activity is going to be in the biennium. So this is one of our smaller funds. We don't spend a whole lot of time on it because there's really not a whole lot of activity in it. On page 194 is Fund 601. This is our cemetery endowment fund. This is also called perpetual care. So for our cemetery, by RCW, we're required to have a fund. The principal of the fund, so the bulk of it, is untouchable for any kind of operating expenditures. It's really there for if the cemetery is ever retired or decommissioned to provide for perpetual care for the people interred there. The only thing that can be done out of this fund is any interest earnings can be transferred out to the cemetery operations fund. We look at that at the end of each year. If there's interest earnings, generally they're small enough where we'll just keep them in the endowment care fund. On page 196 is the Alder Avenue Remediation Fund. This is Fund 603. I have this fund in here just for continuity and transparency, but that property was sold and this fund will be closed at the end of 2020. On page 198 is our Development Impact Fee Fund. So this is an interesting fund. This is Fund 605. When developers apply and go through the permitting system, a portion of their fees are impact fees or mitigation fees. This covers for both fire, traffic, and parks and recreation. Historically, we've kept them in this fund, and then when they're used, they're transferred out to whichever capital fund they're being programmed to. The state auditor's office is changing things up a little bit, and so this fund will be going away at the end of likely 2021. And each of those various impact or mitigation fees will be receipted just into whichever the fund they relate to. So street will go into Fund 320, and parks will go into Fund 310, and fire will go into the general fund. And something very similar with the firefighters pension fund. This fund is funded by the state, by our portion of the fire insurance, the fire premium insurance tax, and the general fund. This has always been kept in a 600 series fund. Beginning in 2021, you'll see this being moved over into the general fund. And this supports our firefighters pension, which is a pre-LEF, and that is pension and medical care. I'm happy to answer any questions on any of these funds.
Okay, now's your chance. Okay. Cindy, is that your hand up or are you blocking the screen? You're muted, Cindy.
Okay, that's me. I want to talk.
Go ahead.
Cassandra, on this cemetery endowment fund,
Yes.
is that a really large fund? I mean, I guess when you start thinking about having to set money aside to keep care of the cemetery kind of indefinitely, how large of a chunk of money do you have to have sitting there?
It's not really set out. There's no guidelines saying, a certain percentage of whatever a baseline might be. Currently, the fund is about 1.48 million. A portion of by statute, a portion of all lot sales go into this fund. So it continually accrues money every year. The thought being the more lots that are sold, the higher the eventual balance in the fund.
But is there a chance that means we have to supplement the cemetery out of the general fund all the time? I mean, would you like to use some of that for more of yearly care now, or?
It would be great, but it's restricted by RCW. It's the revenues in the percentage that goes into this fund are laid out by RCW, and under RCW, it can't be used for operations.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. Any of the council members have any questions on the other funds? Okay, no other questions.
So that is the end of the review of all of the budgeted funds for the 21-22 biennial budget. And then moving on, just to take a look at the City Council Strategic Reserve funds. I will say these are strategic reserves kept in the general fund. It's not a fund by itself. And looks like I think Jason is taking this one.
Thanks, Cassandra. Just to remind everybody what the history is with these funds. Back in 2017, council voted to increase property tax. And they did this because they know that when you look at the 5-year forecast, the revenue and the expenditure lines are anticipated to cross in about 2024. So the thought was we need to start accessing some of our bank capacity to make sure that we can continue to provide services without having to make drastic service cuts. At the same time, there was a move by council to set aside a portion of that property tax increase to be allocated during the budget process. And as you can see, it's about $350,000 a year. The preliminary budget that's before you for consideration includes continuing that set aside. So over the this biennial budget process, you'll add another $700,000 to it. At the end of 21-22, we anticipate a little over $1.7 million in this fund. Next slide. One of the things that staff has asked council is, as this pot of money grows, what are some things that could be funded with this money that are primarily one-time expenses and that help fulfill our services. So during all of our presentations, we've been taking notes and kind of listening to council and what their thoughts are. So the next few slides are going to go over what we heard and what you've told us in passing. So one of the things was senior center generator. This is adding a generator to the facility. It'll allow us to use it as emergency operations center. This is our only city facility currently that has a commercial kitchen in it. The new operations facility will also have one. By having a generator, it could also serve as a warming and cooling center, especially if there's no power, obviously. The approximate cost for this is $200,000, and there might be some limited grant opportunities for that. Next slide. The next project we've talked about is the Mainwood intersection improvement. As you know, staff has been working to wrap up the design and right-of-way for this project. There's currently a survey going on with the community as to what kind of feel that they want this intersection to have. And we've also been in contact with the property owners that we're going to be acquiring right-of-way from, and they are supportive of this project. This is considered the gateway as part of, or one of the gateway intersections of the Sumner Town Center Plan. You can see Mr. Dahlem even put the cutout from the plan right there, talking about Wood and Main intersection. It also addresses some sidewalk concerns. Right now, there's no sidewalks on the southwest and southeast corners, nor are there pedestrian signal heads. So if you've walked this area, to cross the road, you actually have to look up at the stoplight. Talking about the stoplight, it's actually an obsolete signal. There's parts unavailable for it. If we were to have a catastrophic failure, the signal would be scrambling to find parts from possibly a neighboring city, or we'd be in a position where you'd have to put up some sort of temporary control device. And I think it's worth noting that this intersection will be within 500 feet of the new Sumner High School building. And we can come back to, oh, thank you. Here's the actual slide, and I'm gonna actually turn it over to Mr. Dahlem or Mr. Kosa, whoever would like to talk about the design and the funding of this project. Mr. Kosa, thank you.
Why not? I'm Michael Kosa, Associate City Engineer, and I'm Project Manager for the Main and Wood Intersection Improvement Project. So as Jason discussed, we're designing right away are funded. We're going. There was the outreach on the website and more information. It was part of the open house. We're looking at trying to get design wrapped up in the spring and get our right away wrapped up soon after. Just depends on that can either take a little time or a lot of time. Just depends on how negotiations go. But then we're looking at construction. We've applied for grants for this project, and we've had some success with design and right of way, but really see that it will be difficult to get a significant grant for construction. We're still trying, but we've put together a possible financial plan that with a $1.8 million construction cost, looking at leveraging city resources, and between transportation impact fees, there's some utility work that's a part of the project, water sewer lines and some storm facility work that can be that would be attributed to those individual utilities. That covers about the 800,000 range. And then you're looking at about $1 million of funding that we're either looking for a grant or looking for, something that like this, a strategic reserve as a potential funding source to get us to a fully ready for construction project. So.
Thank you, Michael. The one thing I'll add is if you participate in any of our youth forums or the community summit or read our surveys, we get a lot of complaints about this intersection in particular. The roadway approaches can be rough at times. It's still a timed signal, so it's not smart at all. You can't tell if a car's sitting there. It's just on a timer. So this is one of those intersections when people complain about traffic in the city, you drill down and you ask, well, what specifically are you complaining about? This particular intersection is typically brought up.
Okay, Patrick has a question, and then we'll call on Kathy. Go ahead, Patrick.
Thank you, Mayor. And I just want to thank everyone for the work on this. This is something I'm definitely have been in favor of. When the strategic fund was originally created, we tried to put some controls to it. So it was either going to go toward mitigating the streamlined sales tax portion. We tried to assign some of it toward street maintenance, dedicated funding toward that. And then the rest for strategic things like this, items that, budget can't necessarily, general fund and some of the other funds alone just can't manage to cover themselves. I do like the idea of using the strategic funds towards this project. I do have a little bit of concern about the timeline because I don't like the idea of the fund being empty. So I'm curious about the transition from the time this may or may not get approved to the time where the funds are actually encumbered or used. Is there a little bit of a transition period where there's still some money available and there should something important come up unexpected? That is definitely a concern. I thought there was about 200,000 more in the fund than what's being reflected. For some reason, I misunderstood. I thought there was about 1.15 in the fund with it topping out a little bit above that toward the end of the year. So I must have mistaken that in some of the previous discussions. But Cassandra or Jason, can you explain kind of the timeline transition? And then I have a follow-up question about the actual design on the intersection.
Sure. Cassandra, can you go back a couple slides to the fund? Thank you.
There you
go. Okay.
So at the end of this biennium, Mr. Reed, there'll be $1.05 million in the fund, and then we'll add an additional $700,000 over the biennium. As Michael just mentioned, we're going to be completing the design in the spring, and then we have to get right of way. My guess is we'd be looking to put this out to bid, and Michael, you can jump in if I get it way off. Be fall next year at the earliest, for construction starting in early 22, late 21 at the very earliest. So if you can see, Mr. Reedy, if you look at the cash flow on that, we'll probably have at least another full year of revenue coming into that fund.
Okay, so it could be back up to 300,000 or 400,000 before we actually start spending the money down on the Main and Wood project, should it go forward.
Correct, and we had anticipated if you were to allocate $1 million towards Main and Wood, at the end of the biennium, you'd still have about $750,000 in the fund.
Okay, because that was my concern is I didn't want to, I definitely want to use the fund towards something tangible for residents, but at the same time, not deplete it. I mean, it is there for a strategic and or emergency reasons. I know we have the emergency fund as well, but and then I had a question also on the design piece, if you don't mind going back to that. And I've heard from residents, a couple on this already, is the reversed angle on the parking at Dairy Freeze and in that strip. That's got a big question mark out for people.
Yeah,
Mr. Kosa.
Sure. And I think one thing I'd like to do is I think we need to talk about more. This is a good topic to discuss. Because there are some real safety benefits that we see from going to back-in angle rather than the front-in angle parking. Primarily, it has to do, no matter whether you're going to back in or you're going to go front in, you are going to back up at some point. And the question is, would you rather be backing up while you're in a through lane and stopped, or would you rather be backing up when you're trying to get out of that spot after you've already picked up your, drive-through or bike shop type purchases? If you're doing that backup, you can imagine where you are, and if you back up in angled parking much, you'll realize it's really hard to back out of one of those front-end angle parking spots because you're blocked by other cars, and people are not necessarily expecting you to just start backing up. This front end, the back end angle parking allows you to have that conflict when people are still not thrilled about it, but you can kind of give the impression that you need to stop and back up, and people kind of understand how that's going to go. Like I said, not necessarily happy about it, but nobody's ever really happy about it. So it just allows a safer parking job and a much easier ability to get out of spots. So I wanted to I think we need to do a little bit of discussion and outreach on that, because there's a lot that there's some benefits to it that I think people don't immediately think of, but really are really good safety benefits.
I agree. I think that'll be a great item to get some feedback from folks, especially the ones that would frequently be using it, because I understand the concept. It's just something that would be very new, I think, for us, and I think that might cause some hesitation for folks that aren't familiar with it. So, because I received some comments very quickly about that when it was published, but. Yeah, no, I appreciate it. And as far as moving forward with this, I'm not sure what steps are taken, but I'm definitely in favor of using part of the council directed funds toward this project.
Okay, thank you, Patrick. Go ahead, Kathy.
Yeah, I think this is exactly what this fund was intended for, and I would be more than on board with this project going forward and contributing the unidentified funding on this.
Thank you, Kathy. Go ahead, Melanie.
So a couple meetings ago, when we were talking about the taxes and the increase, this is exactly the type of project that I had that comment in mind with these types of projects, because to me, this is what we should be funding through our collected taxes for everybody. And I understand this is sort of the same thing, but Kathy, actually, my idea of this fund is a little bit different, that these are for special projects, not upkeep of intersections that we already have. So that's why I said that before, where I feel like we're just kicking the can down the road to a future council to make that hard call, because we end up in situations like this. So I'd much rather see this money go towards something different, right? But this has to get done. So we're sort of between a rock and a hard place here.
Okay, thanks, Melanie. Other council members? You heard from 3 other council members. See, I think Cindy's reaching for that mute button. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Yes, I'm in favor of this intersection. I did want to know from Mike Kosa on the, I guess that would that the west side? No, that would be the east side. Is there only 2 lanes there? There's no turn lane on the side, on the corner with the Heritage Bank and across from the bike shop? Is there only 2 lanes there?
That's right. Right now, it's kind of a wider lane to the north, and what we're doing is trying to maximize the space by lining those lanes, kind of moving the lanes a little bit further to the north in this this image, and that allows us to have the least amount of impact that we can to the property owners at the Dairy Freeze and the bike shop. So the actual pavement that's out there is a little more of through lane than in terms of actual pavement width than what you see here. And what we're doing is we're trying to use that extra width and kind of not squish it down, but try to make those lanes more reasonably sized, and then use some of that existing area for the angled parking.
So if you're traveling west, you would, if you need to turn, you'll have to sit in the middle of the intersection and wait to be able to turn. There won't be any special lane for that.
That's right. And we, when we looked at this and got to this concept level with the design, we actually did an intersection analysis and tried to look at what we looked at volumes, and the traffic engineering consultant that we hired had a report that looked at where we need pocket turn lanes, where we don't, what's appropriate, what's not. Came up with a configuration that was very similar to the configuration that we already have, and justified that. So I have a memo. It's about, I don't know, 30 to 50 pages long that kind of says the same thing. But that's the basis of this. There was more thought put into, do we need more lanes? Do we need less lanes? Do we need a pocket left or a pocket right lane? And this was the configuration that was deemed to be most effective for the.
Okay, great. Thank you. I just wanted to know that you had studied that thoroughly, and this will be an effective intersection, that it sounds like you have. So I'm really in favor of using the council discretionary funds or whatever strategic funds for this intersection. I think this will make a big difference in connecting the downtown with the other part of town, and will also just update the whole vision of our city to have this in better repair and better working order. So I'd really like to see us move forward on that. Thank you.
Hey, thanks, Cindy. I know, Patrick, you've raised your hand, but I want to see if Barb, Kurt, or Charlotte has any comments first.
Sure.
Sure. I'll talk a little bit. I mean, I think it's good to do major projects like this, but I think I'd like to see the money, that we talked about for the senior center. Buying a generator is a good idea, but I'd also like to see what the Pierce County Department of Aging and Disability, I'm not sure if that's the correct terminology, but I just know there's a number of seniors that could use some social workers or some type of support. And I just want to, maybe look into that idea a bit. And I talked to Jason. I don't know if you found out anything from them, but they.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead, Jason, because I think you did talk to them and you can maybe add some information.
Sure. And then, first off, I want to say that thank you, Councilmember Botetto, for reaching out. Because I learned something too during this. We actually already have a pretty robust partnership with Pierce County Aging and Disability Resources. As an example, they're providing over 100 bags of food to seniors just this week at our senior center, non-perishable food. I think what we could do better is advertising that relationship, because if you're not a regular user of the senior center, you may not know that we have these resources available. So I think that's something we could do better. So that's one option. There might be some other way to enhance services to our senior populations with the strategic money. The other item that we heard about was possibly some funding to assist with the advancement of the new library location. Just a reminder, the city purchased property for the new library, or for the library to move down onto Main Street. Obviously with COVID, the library is taking some time to reevaluate what their future is and their service delivery models. But I am pleased to say that out of all the library location or library capital projects that they have going on, or that were in the pipeline, Sumner is the only one that they are continuing to advance forward. So I know the mayor will be talking more at future council sessions about the library and their future plans.
Okay, thanks, Jason. Does that help, Barb?
Yeah, that helps. I mean, I just, infrastructure and all that is great, but sometimes it's the people that we, live here that we do need to support. So but it's good to know that there is the Pierce County Aging and Disability Resources are working here.
Mayor, you were muted.
Go ahead, Charlotte.
Thank you. For me, it's kind of easier to deal with this one at a time. I appreciate the information about Wood and Main, and I place a high value on maintenance and infrastructure, and especially with traffic hitting our city so hard. So when this kind of came up as an idea, I also asked myself, is this the most effective way to impact traffic? And it gets complicated from there, but I do really place faith and confidence in our staff's what has been a historical, incredible ability to get grants. And so, and outside funding. And so when they say that this intersection is a place where we are less likely to be successful as we are in the other places where we get outside funding to help with improvements, that's a wake up call, and I pay attention to that. And so, so I can evaluate a lot of things, but I can stand behind this as a very strong suggestion and support us using these funds, because even in my own experience with traffic, it would be difficult. I don't see how this gets fixed without really being on the shoulders of Sumner. And so in that regard, so I do actually support the idea of using those funds for moving forward with Wood and Main improvements. I kind of wanted to keep separate the potential conversation about this smaller amount of remaining funds. And I don't know if now is the appropriate time, or I'd like to finish hearing from council members about Wood and Main, and then talk about one other idea I had that would be in addition to the slide that staff has posted under other considerations.
Just trying to close out before I'll get back to you on that, on your other thought there. But Kurt, just open the floor to you to see how you feel about Wood and Main.
I think spending the money there would be a wonderful idea. Yeah, what, $1 million? Yep, let's do it.
Okay. Well, since we have a majority of the council that wants to move forward with allocating $1 million towards the Wood and Main project, and so we have a complete project. Do just to be fair, Patrick's had his hand up. I'm going to call on him, then Charlotte will get back to your idea. Go ahead, Patrick.
Thank you, Mayor. I had a follow-up question for Mike, I believe, and then I had kind of a response for Barb, if that's okay.
Go ahead and hit your follow-up question for Mike
Do
Kosa.
we have the business feedback on the back-end angle parking? Have they signed off on that as an option, or have they given an opinion one way or the other?
You know, I've met with each one of the property owners that is affected, that would be having to deal with the parking situation. While they aren't necessarily super, no one's super happy when they're needing to have work done right in front of their establishments. They do see the need to do something with this intersection. They get to see that every day, which is, I think, very, very helpful, especially since they're all, part of the local community. These aren't people from far away that don't ever show up here. These are people that work in these facilities, and yeah, they can look out their window and understand that this intersection is not operating well. And we did as much as we could to try to accommodate the parking situation. They were mostly concerned about the number of spots. There will be a net reduction in the number of spots. We did everything we could to try to maximize the number of spots available, but there are there are a few spots that are literally just too close to the intersection. And you could, if you drove out there, you would understand, or looked at an aerial, they were just too close. So we couldn't replace every single one of them. We do have a public lot across the street as well. But they were mostly concerned about that. We were able to shoehorn in a couple more lots or spots after talking to them. And they're generally happy. They talked about attempting to try to figure out the right time for construction to try to avoid some of their peak periods. We'll do what we can. It's difficult. Everybody wants to be open and available during the summer, and same with construction. So that's a challenge, but what we're gonna try to accommodate the best we can on all fronts. That's the input we received.
And I appreciate that, because that was one of my main things about that intersection, because I know early on, when just the concepts were being bounced around, the business owners had some grave concerns about not being involved early in the early stages when it was still conceptual. But now that things are coming about, I think that's great. I think that the more involvement we can get from them, it doesn't mean we can accommodate everything like you're saying, but having their buy-in or their input, I think, is really important, especially when you're talking about some long established businesses in town and valuing what they have to say about what's going on. So I appreciate that. And then the second question was in regards to Barb's comments around the senior center. And this may tie together with what Charla's mentioning too, is on future use of the funds. One of the things, because I know the Wood and Main is more a use of finding an opportunity to use the existing fund balance toward a tangible return for residents, which I fully support. But that doesn't mean we can't plan through this next biennium, or do we maybe address it during the mid-buy with like the senior center discussion and what their needs are as far as the generator and or any of the other items that we can assist there with, and trying to plug that into the biennial budget as a future expenditure? Or is that something we would make note of and then potentially visit during the mid-buy and see where we're at that point? Because we know there's going to be 350-ish a year coming in for the next 2 years. Do we start to plan for some of that as one of the next projects in addition to Wood and Main?
Go ahead, Mr. Wilson.
I was going to say, I think that's a good approach. And I just want to remind council, one of the original goals, and these can change obviously, but one of the original goals of the strategic fund was to really focus on one-time expenses. Otherwise, it just would roll into the general fund and be able to be allocated for ongoing operation costs. I want to applaud council. I think you guys have done a phenomenal job with your fiscal planning here. Not many cities can say that A, they have no general obligation debt, and B, we're going to pay for an intersection that is sorely needed and we don't have to borrow money to do it. That's a win for this community and you as council members.
Okay, I'm going to go back to Charlotte and then we'll call on Melanie. Go ahead, Charlotte.
Actually, can we do reverse order? Just because I have a feeling Melanie's might be about this one where I want to talk about the 30 to 50,000 remaining.
If you want to yield to Melanie, go ahead. Go ahead, Melanie.
My question went back to the generator conversation. What is the school's role in the community when it comes to emergency events?
That's a good question. First off, their primary concern is their students and their staff during an emergency event. So let's just say there was a natural disaster that occurs during the day while they have students in the building. Their main goal at that point is to ensure their safety and shelter them in those buildings as long as they're safe to do so. For evacuations, for example, for flooding or some other natural disaster or man-made event, the school district buildings are generally not used. We partner with the Red Cross and use Red Cross shelters, which are currently Calvary Community Church and then one of the Derringer schools up on the hill.
Gotcha. Okay, thanks. Not that we could ever have enough backup plans, but I was just curious how those work together. Thank you.
Yep.
Good question, Melanie. Okay, Charlotte, go ahead.
So thank you. So after I've been able to ask similar questions to like Melanie in terms of possibilities and best way to use these dollars, but also not to don't have them spread out so thin that we don't actually accomplish anything. I back up and support the idea of the $1 million going into the intersection that we essentially won't be able to update and improve and make safer in any other way. We don't have any alternatives around it. After that, after I had time to process that, it did lead me to realize that we had about $30,000 to $50,000 left in this discretionary fund. And I asked myself the question, maybe it's better that it sits there and rebuilds. That's a possibility. But considering the size of that fund, it's mostly it's virtually depleted anyway. But is there some value we can get out of those remaining dollars? And I did look at also like senior services, et cetera. But as I made calls, one thing that consistently came up was a need for information and data so that we can all better compete for regional funding, like whether it be from county or state or federal. We Sumner does not, to my knowledge, and from what I hear from the churches and the schools and nonprofit, everyone who's actually providing the social services, doesn't really have good data about where our greatest needs are. Like I make assumptions that it's like with senior services and whatnot, but I would like to ask my fellow council members to consider whether we would like to use that remaining like $30,000 to $50,000 on a good, solid study that could help all of us. It could help the city identify any like future direction that it needs to or doesn't need to go, but also all of our partners could benefit from it in terms of leveraging it for their own grants and for other like funding requests. I think that we are lacking data in that regard. We're great at doing like traffic studies and knowing where our needs are and identifying intersections, and not the same when it comes to like human health, like health and human services. anyway, so I'd like to throw that out there for consideration and discussion for using funds in that that direction.
Yeah, I guess the thing that strikes me on that, Charlotte, is that there's definitely need for that. I just don't know what's out there. You say you looked around and tried to find information available. And when I think of information that's available through United Way of Pierce County, through the Greater Tacoma Community Foundation, through the Family Center, that type of thing, I don't know what's there. And I don't know how that fits into what you're looking to get. In other words, I don't know what's out there right now. And part of me says, yeah, it'd be great to do, but part of me says, don't do something if you have the information already out there. It's just, we don't know where it is and what it is.
More than fair. And I don't want anyone to take my word for it. Just so like I've made calls and they feel like everyone has their it's contained in silos, but nothing comprehensive. But, and I should have been more clear, is that I'm not married to this. I guess I would appreciate it if staff could spend the next 2 weeks verifying whether there's a need for that to occur if there was council interest in it. Like I'm not asking for anyone to take my word for it. I would like staff help on that.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. One of the basic things you do in moving ahead with social services is knowing where the heck you are, right now, and what that overall demographic is. I know one of the things that I ran across as part of my United Way involvement was the whole study on ALICE. As limited income, and found out that Sumner has a higher percentage of ALICE families than our neighbors, and which is the next level up above poverty level, which means, hey, there's some serious needs that we have out there. So yeah, maybe what we can do is, I don't know, about 2 weeks time, but try to capture what information is available and get that to council, and before we move ahead to try to find out what we don't know, if we can find out what we do know. Go ahead, Jason.
My recommendation, we're holding a public hearing next week, which means we have to have the dollar amount of the total budget. So one consideration we could do is, if council is in favor of examining this further, you could recommend allocating those funds, but before we actually go out and spend those funds, we could answer all those questions and come up with a scope that council's comfortable with. And then if you're not comfortable with it, or we don't need it, then we would just return. We wouldn't actually spend those funds, and they just return to the fund balance.
And before I call on you, Charlotte, and then we go to Melanie, is that, we can amend the budget at any time. I mean, typically we do it on the, biennial basis and then a mid-biennial basis. It doesn't mean the council has the capacity to amend it at any time, for whatever need is out there. So anyway, I think Melanie, and no, see, I go back to you, Charlotte. I think you had your hand raised, or did you put it back down?
I did, but I was happy to hear from others first.
Okay.
But I was fine with both, like what Jason suggested. And again, I had multiple conversations that led me to believe that this is the one thing that was lacking, but possibly as staff explores, if there is good information out there, maybe it's a matter of agencies not sharing. Like, can we get them to share? Like, I'm open to that. Maybe this is a good way to put pressure on them to make, if there's good data available, make it more accessible so that we can all use it for leverage, like rather than fighting for our, arguing for trying to survive alone.
Got it. Thank you. Go ahead, Melanie.
Yeah, I like the idea of studying this to find out what the most urgent need is in our community, and then we can make a plan, sort of to Patrick's earlier comment around how are we going to plan for this budget in the future. I think this will help us with that. And yeah, I would love to see staff be able to spend some time on it and use their connections to see if there's information out there. And if not, how can we fill that void? Totally in support.
Thanks, Melanie. Go ahead, Kathy.
Yeah, I just want to say I appreciate everybody's different views and different ideas. I think that's a good thing. And I really, this is an ongoing fund that's not going to be disappearing. It'll just keep building. And I think taking one project at a time is a good thing. And we can always talk about the other ideas as we go.
Okay, thanks, Kathy. Barb, go ahead.
Yeah, I think having staff look at the, what information is out there is a good one. And, what are some of the possibilities? Because, for example, Rotary spent the last 3 or 4 years interviewing different people in the community and also different agencies. And, so we know there's a big need. And, why do we have the number of free and reduced lunch, families, and, who aren't we finding out about? So I think, I guess in my, I think the intersection is a good move, get it paid for, get it done. And then, let's look at some of these other ideas. So that's my input for now.
Okay, thanks, Barb. Go ahead, Cindy.
I like the idea of having a study, but what I would want staff to look into is to find out what agency or what group would do this study that we would really like to see. So sometimes I'm disenchanted with consultants we have that we pay lots of money to, and I don't feel like they really get us what we're hoping for. So I would want staff to figure out if there's someone who could actually be able to pull this kind of a good service together for us, because like Ms. Botetto was saying, the Rotary has already done a lot of research on this, and maybe we should look at the Rotary information solidly and from the city's point of view. So anyways, that's just what I would like staff to look for. And I'm still solidly behind the Wood and Main project. So thank you.
Okay, thanks, Cindy. Go ahead, Patrick.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I do like the idea of the study and identifying where we are and what the needs of our residents are, and or not in areas where we may be making assumptions. But at the same time, I want to be cautious about that process, that it's not projecting or setting up an expectation that the city is going to solve those problems as a result of the study. I think that's a caution point I would put out there, because I don't know that that's within the realm, in my opinion, of we need to know and we need to help and facilitate and coordinate things like that. But whether or not we are the problem solver, I think that's a bigger discussion.
Okay, thanks, Patrick. Okay, what we'll do is I'll sit down with staff and we'll try to go back over just what information is available out there. There is, I think, a lot of information. You talk about a couple of weeks here. At the same time, I don't want to meet with Jason, have him look at me and say, "You promised what?" In a 2-week time period, but we'll do our best to try to get the information together and see what is available. I might also remind you, in terms of housing needs and stuff, we are in that area. We're moving ahead with Bonnie Lake and hope to have a draft study comes out in terms of affordable housing needs, I believe, in November in terms of draft, and then a final study after the first of the year. So let's go back, try to see what data sources are available, including Rotary, the United Way, our own work with Bonnie Lake, and whatever else we can find. And but I'm concerned about a 2-week time frame. It may take a little bit longer than that. Mr. Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, there's no plausible way that staff can do something of this magnitude in 2 weeks with everything else we have going on right now. So actually like your suggestion, if we can go with it of have staff come back early next year and amend the budget once we have a better understanding of, is this a $15,000 project or a $50,000 project? And I think, as many of you mentioned, there is a lot of data out there already, and might be cheaper than what we thought.
Okay, let's do that. We'll take it on. I'll work with you there, Jason, too, in terms of my sources. We can get that information together. But yeah, we got a lot of irons in the fire right now. As we look, we're almost into November, and before we know it, it's going to be 2021. Okay. Any other comments, council members' input in terms of discretionary funds? It sounds like we have consensus to throw the $1 million in for the Wood and Main intersection, and that there's some work that we have to do to come up with maybe some other ideas that can be either put it in the mid-billion or earlier if the council so desires. Again, because you can amend the budget at any time. Okay. Okay, let's move on. We don't have anything more on, you're going to go over the budget calendar. Why don't you do that? Go ahead.
So quickly, just as a point of clarity on the Wood and Main project, by funding the construction, there were funds in the rate model. The utility portion of those funds was in the rate model for out years, that is years past 2021, 2022. For the final budget that we'll be bringing forward, we'll move those funds into the 21-22 budget. Because it's already included in the rate model, it doesn't have any impact on the rates. It's just simply a matter of putting it into the right year into the budget.
Okay,
and then moving forward,
you make the budget follow the project here, and so
yes.
Dollars, but it doesn't. So I make sure, because I know when we've messed with things like that in the past, is that we don't want it to screw up the rate model and end up having a significant impact on rates. But you're telling the council and me that it doesn't.
Exactly.
Okay, I think that is Council Member Reed. Your video isn't on, but I'm just taking a guess here. Go ahead.
It is. I apologize for that. It seems to, when the audio starts breaking up, if I turn off the video, it seems to come through better. So my question is on the allocation portion of it, or encumbrance of those funds. If we put it into the budget for the 1 million for Wood and Main, that encumbers that $1 million directly to that project, correct? It doesn't put it just into the general portion of the fund?
No, it'll be pinned to that project.
Okay. Thank you. That's why I just wanted to make sure that's, I prefer the specifics that way.
Sure.
Cassandra would never have it otherwise.
There are all kinds of little accounting titles for reserved for construction project.
I should have known better.
Go ahead, Cassandra.
So as you can see, we have made it through our study sessions on streets, parks, facilities. We'd already done the utilities as part of the rate model. We've talked about the general fund. We've now talked about the other funds. We've had our public hearing on the property tax levy for 2021. So coming up next on November 2nd, we have our first public hearing for the biennial budget, as well as the resolution setting the property tax levy for tax year 2021. After that, you'll have a whole study session that doesn't have anything to do with the budget. And then November 16th, we'll come back for our second public hearing on the biennial budget. And we are scheduled for the ordinance adopting the budget on November the 30th. And I believe at that time, during this, you will also be seeing a ordinance for the 2021 compensation schedule for staff. That's where we're at. Happy to answer any questions, not only on the calendar, but on any of the funds or programs that we've reviewed thus far.
Okay, don't see any. Cool. Good job.
Thank you.
Okay. We go on to go back to the agenda here. Diversity and equity update and discussion. Do I go back to you, Mr. Wilson?
Yes, Mayor.